we're going to continue with Romans 12, and we went through Romans 12, 1 to 2, which was about offering yourself to God and the ramifications that happen. And then last week we did verses uh, 3 to 8, and this was in reference to giftedness and how you perceive yourself in light of the church. And today we're going to look at 9 to 21, chapters verses 9 to 21. Okay, now um, before we begin, I wanna say Romans 12 is from 9 to 21. I'm just going to summarize it here, but essentially, if if you truly if you truly believe in God, um, and I mean you're changed. There's a concept of belief in God, like I believe that the earth exists. I believe that the sun exists. Well, even if I have a bad day or not, it still exists. That's my belief about God, as far as a divine being, a transcendent being. But the Bible doesn't teach believe in that type of way. The belief that the Scripture teaches is one that comes from the heart, or one that changes your heart, where this God is actually active, meaning that you know certain alignment issues within your heart, that He's revealed in the Scriptures, and there's almost a transformation process that happens. So when someone really truly is changed and transformed by God, the one way that you know that this person has been changed, totally changed by God, is by one criteria, and that's this: how they treat people. You know someone's heart as far as how they've been touched, how they've been changed. Not just general dry belief, but I mean they've been changed, they've been touched. Is how they treat other people, how their heart interacts with other people. Okay? I want to read to you some passages. For instance, in 1 John 4 20 to 21, the disciple of John who says that Jesus loved most in his Gospels, but says, "Whoever claims to love God yet hates a brother or sister is a liar. For whoever does not love their brother and sister, whom they've seen, cannot love God whom you have not seen. He has given us this command: anyone who loves God must also love their brother and sister." Okay. Also, John, the chapter where he washed the disciples' feet, chapter 13, verse 34, 35, Jesus says, "A new commandment that I give you: love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this, everyone, uh, you will know that you are my disciples, by the love that you have for one another." So, how do you know the stamp of God upon someone? How do you know there's a verified child of God? Well, how do they treat people? Do they love people, right? Or do they hate people? One more. 1 John 3 17 to 18, also John says, if anyone has material possessions and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Dear children, let us love with words or speech, with action and truth. Sorry, let us not love with word or speech, but with action, and in truth. So, the heart's posture with people is a reflection of the heart's posture with God. And notice I'm not just saying just dry belief. I'm talking about the condition of where your heart is. You see someone that's always frustrated, always angry all the time. There's nothing wrong with being angry, but you're always angry all the time. That's a condition. That's a state. Okay? There's a state where someone is always nasty to people. That state is anti-God, according to 1 John. Okay? The surrendered heart to God does not display coldness to people. Okay, I'm not saying you can't have a bad day, or some negative dispute happen. I'm not saying. I'm just saying, generally speaking, if someone's heart is truly touched, transformed by God, there will be a total transformation of how they interact with people. Okay, this is essentially what Romans 12:9 to 21 Paul will talk about. Okay, so for this passage, he'll talk about love. Let love be genuine in verse 9, but love displayed towards different people. And this passage has a lot of imperatives, a lot of commands. Do this, but we can't get to every single one of them. It's very practical today, but I'm generalizing them as far as the categories that Paul has displayed it, has communicated, and that is love towards people. But what kind of people? First, love in the family of God, or love in the family, from verses 9 to 13. And then there's love towards those who are hostile, from verse 14 to 16, hostility, persecution. And then there's also love towards your enemies, those that not just don't like you, but you don't like them as well. So there's degrees there. So it's first you love your family or your church family, kind of easy, right? But then there's love toward so there's degrees, and it gets worse and worse. And then all of a sudden there's love towards hostility towards you. So people outside of you might not like you and want the worst for you, right? But then, oh, hi Lane. We're in Romans 12:9 to 21. Okay.
Okay.
So there's love towards your church family, but there's love towards hostility. In the context of love toward when it comes to hostility, these are people that don't like you, want the worst for you, say they're persecuting you, but the hate has not reached your heart. Okay, you see them as is. But the third one is your enemy. And this is where, yes, people that don't like you, people want the worst for you. But now, whatever the situation is, there's now a hatred in your heart towards them. Now they're your enemy. Okay, and if you're saying I don't have an enemy, I would say you might be lying, because we all have someone in this existence that we have, someone where you have some sense of conflict, or if you want to consider that an enemy, so be it. But the point is that person is now perceived as some sense of a threat to you, considering an enemy. That state will happen, but again, how do you treat that person? Okay, so again, love towards the family, love towards those in hostility, and love towards your enemy. Okay, so first let's look at love towards the family of God. Can someone read Romans 12:9 to 16 out loud? Romans 12:9 to 16.
Love must be sincere. Hate what is evil, cling to what is good. Be devoted to one another in love. Honor one another above yourselves. Never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor. How do you say that? Fever. Serving the Lord. Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. Practice hospitality. Bless those who persecute you, and bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. And where am I supposed to stop at?
16.
Next one, okay. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud, but be willing to associate with people of low position. Do not be conceited.
So look at verse 9. If we were just let love be genuine, abhor what is evil, hold fast to what is good. So these are three imperatives that Paul starts off with that describe love. Okay, he talks about what? Genuineness of love. There's a sense of abhorring evil and maintaining, holding fast to that which is good, as far as the imperatives. Now, as far as what he says, let love be genuine. This is about sincerity. Okay, remember, love doesn't stem from the mind. Love starts in the heart. The mind makes beliefs about the object of your love. Okay? But does it start from there? Is it genuine? Okay? The genuineness of love. Okay? In the opposite of genuineness, Paul talks about is that of hypocrisy. Okay? And if you know, when we think of hypocrites, we think Pharisees. Remember, that's just a Jewish sect, the only Jewish sect that survived the destruction of the temple in 70 A.D. by the Romans, by Titus. But essentially, it's a hypocrite is two ways. You are one way, but you present yourself in another fashion. That's contrary to how you are. So, this term, this word hypocrite, came from that which was an actor in Rome. So there'd be like, say, two actors, but then they had 4 or 6 masks each, and then they would go in front of people and put a mask on. They'd be one character, and then they put another mask on, and then it'd be another character, and people will find entertainment out of this. It's just so funny, by the way, when you think of Rome. You have actors and you had athletes who were the gladiators at the time, and they were slaves. Right? Now, if you're an actor, if you're an athlete, you're a multi-millionaire. Right? It's just so funny how society flipped. Right? So, but the whole point of being an actor was that you actually had a mask. Okay, they didn't act the way we do today, where you're acting as a specific character. No, they had masks. Okay, and that's the essence of a hypocrite. What Paul is saying here is let love be genuine. Make sure there's no mask when you do it. Okay? The second imperative he talks about is not tolerating with evil. Abhor that which is evil. Okay? So, the Bible is very clear on this as far as there is a war on evil that we are to partake in. Psalm 97, verse 10 says, love which is evil, hate what is good. Hate which is evil, love that is good. I apologize for that. Proverbs chapter 8, verse 13 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And he says, pride, arrogance, perverted speech, I hate, says the Lord. Right? And the fear of the Lord is what? It's a hatred of evil, he says. Okay? So listen to that. The fear of the Lord, the love of God, is what? A hatred towards evil. Okay? Hatred. So the reason why I say that, because there's a guilt that we all have as Christians. You're not supposed to hate, right? Because you're also always supposed to love. Remember, I think we've talked about this before. It's impossible not to hate if you have love. It's impossible. If you love, you have therefore some sense of abhorring, hating towards an object, towards your love. Okay? So it's impossible. Impossible. We're always going to have that inside of us. That's why I say anger tells you a lot about a person. Hate tells you a lot about a person because it gets to the root of what they value. Okay, so if you abhor evil, what he's saying in chapter 12, the implication is what? There's an attachment towards that which is good, right? Offer yourself what? As a sacrifice. This is what happens to the heart that has offered themselves as a sacrifice, is they abhor evil, right? The fear of the Lord is what? A hatred of evil, Proverbs 8, verse 13. Amos 5:15 says, hate evil, love good. Okay? In the New Testament, there are passages where Paul will speak about issues. And he'll say, for example, Ephesians 5:31, where he says, sexual immorality, that should not be named among you. That should not be named among you. 1 Corinthians 5, there's an incident that happened where there was a man that he was sleeping with his stepmother. And it's not that he was sleeping with his stepmother that Paul had issues with it. But the worst, a part that was just as much as a shock to Paul was that the fact that the church of Corinth, they tolerated it. right? They tolerated evil. And Paul was saying, why do you guys tolerate with this? Right? So you hear a lot in society about Christians are what? They're so intolerant, right? And I think there should be. And as far as the way we treat evil, I had a discussion with a friend of mine about transgenderism in Canada, and him just saying, like, I think people should be more tolerant. And I think for us is that the Bible is very clear when it comes to not tolerating evil, but abhorring it. Okay? So, again, 1 Corinthians 5, Paul was saying, you guys tolerate this? I can't believe it. And the whole point of it, you should not tolerate this kind of behavior. It should not be named among you. Okay, and you go into the three passages I named before into the Old Testament. What? The love of God, the fear of the Lord is what? Hatred of evil. Okay? So, for believers, there should be a sense of abhorring or agitation or frustration when it comes to evil in our society. Okay? If not, then there might be some sense of negligence or lukewarmness inside of us. Okay? So, it talks about sincerity, genuine love, talks about abhorring evil, and then he talks about holding fast to that which is good. Okay? Love uplifts the good. Love is genuine. Love abhors evil, but love upholds the good. Okay? The good, by definition, is that which... good, by definition, is what God does. What God approves of. How the will of God that's given to humanity. Obviously, that's in the scriptures, right? That which is, we uphold that in society. We uphold that. We uphold that with our lives. Okay, it's good. Anything that's not good, that's evil, that's anti-God right there. Okay, so essentially, let it come from within. Okay, Paul is saying. So true love is not hypocritical. It does not have to act. It does not have to act. It acts, it functions from the freedom of its own passion. That's love. Okay? Verse 10, Paul says, love one another with brotherly affections, with affection. Outdo one another and showing honor. Okay? The significance of upholding one another's honor. Honor is due to being an image bearer. If I say the word honor, what comes to your mind? What comes to mind first when you hear the word honor?
Respect.
Anyone else?
I mean, honoring is like it's more showy. Like there's a procession to it, I think.
Yeah. I think there's kind of what I said before, vainglory. Right? It's a misguided honor or disordered honor. Like biblically, it's exactly what Bonnie was saying. Is it respect? All of us listening right now deserve respect, honor, from the moment you're born. Because respect puts you as an image bearer in your proper function, in your proper place of life. Remember I talked about humility last week, right? Of verse 3, when he says, by the grace of God, I say to everyone among you, do not think of himself more highly than he ought to. A part of that, this mental state towards yourself, is honor, is respect. And the reason why we have that is because of who we are ontologically, that we are image bearers of God. Okay? Now, when someone is not respected properly, issues happen in life. It's a nature and it's a nurture process. It's nature. We have to be respected in this world because we're image bearers. You ever see the animal kingdom? They're not image bearers. Some of them might be smart. Some of them, and a lot of them aren't, obviously. But what I'm saying is, when it comes to the animal kingdom, there is no respect. You see like a deer, a mom deer, and it has two little babies, and you see like hyenas just devour the little babies right in front of the mom. The mom has to run, or vice versa. They eat the mom right in front of the kids. It's gruesome. but there's no respect in the animal kingdom, right? When it comes to humanity, when it comes to us as image bearers, it shouldn't be that way. When there's disrespect done to another person, something is off, something is wrong, right? And how many of us have been disrespected at one point of our life? Hands up, or just within your heart, right? And it's like a shock that happens. And I think when there's a sense of respect, it's almost like you have to fight for it back, right? You have to, because like you have to wash yourself from that disrespect, or my honor was violated. When I say you have to work for it back, is like, say you were bullied, say you were called a nasty name in school, or someone cut you off on the highway, right? Or treated as if you never existed. It's like almost we have to like work for it, find an accomplishment, find a relationship, experience some sense of clout that happens, right? That's why when there's you accomplish something, you're like, I feel good, right? No one can ever say anything negative to me again, right? And the whole point of that is like you almost have to work for your respect or your own honor, right? Remember, honor or being an image bearer is you don't have to work for it. You don't have to work for it. The reason why there's all this disrespect is due to the disordered nature of humanity, right? We put ourselves first before other people. We can't see life as far as the equilibrium of heaven, right? Instead, we have to look at it like this, okay? So, you ever notice, say, in military, in the Roman Empire, whenever someone died, someone was killed in battle, they always went back for that dead body, right? They went back for the dead body and they would bring it. Why? Because there was respect towards the dead, right? I'm a body, but I'm also a soul too. I'm a soul and I'm a body, but because I'm of a body, there has to be some sense of respect, right? You ever wonder why? I'm getting all psychological here, but you ever wonder why people fear a gruesome death? I think all of us are like, yeah, when I die, I want to die when I'm sleeping. You just don't wake up. Versus like, you die by a shark attack or a plane. You know what I mean? It's like, is because there's a disrespect towards that sense of death. That's why we fight it. All of us fight it because what? We're trying to preserve our own honor, right? So the same thing with the U.S. military. If someone dies, guess what? The soldiers go for the dead body and bring it back. Right? It was called the Teutoburg Forest. I don't want to get all historically but like there were around 15,000 Roman soldiers slaughtered due to the Germanic tribe, and it's called in Germany today Teutoburg, and it was one of the most gruesome deaths or slaughters in Roman history. But what happened was that they were betrayed by someone from inside, Arminius. But what happened was that they were all slaughtered. But 7 years later, under Tiberius, the military came back and got the dead body. Even 7 years later, the bones were all there on trees. But the whole point was they're preserving some sense of dignity to these men, right? So, but my whole point here is showing brotherly honor and affection towards one another, right? And this is the essence of what families should do. A healthy family preserves everyone's respect. We recognize everyone's existence. An unhealthy family situation, a lot of neglect, a lot of disrespect, a lot of me versus you mentality. And then people leave that household, and guess what? They carry the problems with them, and they carry their problems in life. Very common. Okay? But what Paul is saying is to love one another with brotherly affection, outdo one another in showing honor. Okay? Any questions as of now?
Like, honor, it says honor is more like, it's a step above respect, where when you show honor to someone, you're acting in accord, you're aligning your actions with that person, like to show them honor.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting because it's like within the context of the body of Christ, it's like, if there's people you're seeing often, it's like you're honoring them in some way because it's like you see them often.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It just creates a different dynamic.
I'm sure we all know, and if not, if your mind has not process, like at least your heart knows when you are disrespected, anger comes right away, right? Right? You want to know what's going to make
Yeah.
you angry? You being disrespected, someone treating you so small, as if you don't even exist, right? And this is why it's very healthy to preserve that within each other, right? Calling other people out towards disrespect, right? Not even towards you, but if you see someone disrespecting them, no, fight for that person's honor. That's disrespectful, right? Preserving honor towards each other. It's a healthy culture, healthy. Okay. Verse 11, he says, "Do not be slothful in zeal. Be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. Do not be slothful in zeal." You guys know the sloth, right? With the claws and the right. um, is that Danny? I don't know if Danny's here, but uh, but essentially, zeal. Zeal. Do not be slothful in zeal. Be fervent in spirit. Serve the Lord. When saying do not be slothful in zeal, essentially, there's a sense when it comes to believers and a zeal for God. Okay. The Bible also talks about zeal, but a balance with the mind. Okay, and sometimes the mind outbalancing zeal, the heart. But what's healthy is when there's a proper alignment between the two of them. Okay, remember, Jesus had zeal. In John 4, he says, "My food is to do the will of my Father." That was his food. You ever wake up and you're hungry or you're dehydrated, there's a natural instinct. His was to do that which what the Father has called him to do. It's a zeal that drove him. Okay? Zeal without knowledge is fanaticism. Knowledge without zeal is pharisaical. Okay? Romans 10, verse 2 says, the zeal that's not based upon knowledge. Remember, Paul was talking about the Jews and how come they don't believe, and this whole concept of election. And he said, the Jews have a zeal, but the Jewish zeal, it's not consistent with knowledge. Okay, someone that has knowledge as their sense of pride or value or significance in life would be greatly offended by Paul to say that. You have a lot of passion, but not according to knowledge. You're very ignorant, essentially, what Paul is saying. Okay? Proverbs 19, verse 2 says, "Desire without knowledge is not good. Passion without knowledge is not good." Okay? Remember, that's it. What that leads to is extremism, terrorism, a lot of passion, screaming, but inconsistent with that with the good of God. Okay, when someone screams Allah Akbar and when passion, right, you see it all over them, but it's inconsistent with the knowledge of God. Okay. Zeal is based upon the truth. Okay, based upon the truth. A heart that has zeal must be consistent with truth. There's this passage in Luke 24 where these two men are on the road to Emmaus, and they had a lot of zeal in their heart, but it wasn't according to the scriptures. It wasn't according to the truth. And Jesus essentially talked to them about the Messiah, him, without them even knowing it. And I'm going to read to you. I think it's Luke 24, verse 32. Sorry. Verse 32 says this. And remember, after Christ communicating with the two of them, let me read to you verse 17 and then jump to 32. I think verse 17 talks about the desires that they had. It says, he said to them, "What is the conversation you are holding with each other as you walk?" And they stood and looked. And then he says later on, "And they said to each other, did not our hearts burn within us?" That was it. "Did not our hearts burn within us while he talked to us on the road?" while he opened up the scriptures. See that? They're talking about him, but the Messiah, because this is the day he resurrected, and all of a sudden, he is walking with them, talking to these two men, and all of a sudden, did their hearts what? Burn with zeal as he communicated the scriptures. There's an alignment there. There's an alignment that happened. Okay? One more passage. It's in Deuteronomy 28. Talks about they were God got upset with Israel for not having enough joy, not having enough zeal. Okay? So remember, there's a sense of you have to be zealous, but inconsistency with the truth. You have too much zeal, no knowledge, it's fanaticism. It's terrorism. You have knowledge, but the zeal, you have Phariseeism. You have to balance it out. Okay? Balance it out. Verse 12. Or any questions?
What was Deuteronomy?
Deuteronomy 28, 47 to 48. You want to read that, Kevin? It's a good passage. Deuteronomy 28, 47 to 48.
Because you did not serve the Lord your God with joyfulness and gladness of heart because of the abundance of all things. Therefore you shall serve your enemies from the Lord with... Serve your enemies with... Wait, sorry. Therefore you shall serve your enemies whom the Lord will send against you in hunger and thirst and nakedness and lacking everything. And he will put a yoke of iron on your neck until he has destroyed you.
So essentially, God was upset. There was no passion in their heart. There was no joy in their heart. Right? Sometimes when you have too much abundance, I think comfort is one of those things that it progressively makes you dull inside towards the things that really matter in life. Right? And I think this is what the Israelites were. Remember, Deuteronomy 24, that's the end of the Torah. So this is the very end where Moses was communicating the very last words, things that were significant to him. Right? So, and it's a reality. These people that Moses is reading to never entered into the promised land unless they were young. Joshua, Caleb. Right? They lacked joy. Okay? Do you guys think, and this is, I think you can only answer this if you're older, is that if you believe in something, and you know to be true, say Christianity, there's that sense of so much passion when you're young. And then would you say that it's a fight sometimes to keep that passion and zeal alive? Is that
I just think discouragement and dispirited discouragement seems to eat away at that.
Yeah.
To where it's like the passion and zeal is really something of the higher levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and as you take more burdens on in life, it's sort of a luxury that you can't afford.
Yeah. Anyone else? I'm talking about age kind of doing that when it comes to zeal, passion. You lose it sometimes. But when you're young, you're on fire. On fire, but foolish. Sometimes.
When you're younger, you're a little more energetic.
Yeah.
And more, I guess, severe, stronger in your feelings.
Yeah.
If you love someone, you love them very much. You gotta go hold on for dear life. But when you're grown up, you kind of like calm down.
Yeah.
And even if you love somebody, you're not jumping up and down and trying to overpower them. You're just saying, I love you, or hugging you or something.
Yeah. Control.
So there's quite a difference circumstance there.
I think there's a psychological and like neurological component to that, because it's like we can be switched on and off depending on our circumstances and those that we associate with. And like, you know, someone that I think may not be as joyful can immediately become joyful. Like I think I think the scripture is right where it says that the abundance of things can like dull out life. But I also think the opposite, where you can be switched on, like in your mind or your heart or your soul, like something can switch you on. I think it's all true, but I also think that it's like you're not limited to a certain like road, like it can be turned around.
Okay. What do you mean, Kevin, when you say um, abundance, but with little? You said, was that it?
Like what I was saying is, you know, it's like in Deuteronomy where you're saying that, like the abundance of things, you know, basically like living a comfortable life.
Yeah.
If that's what the writer was talking about, but like even if you have that, it can dull you out, but it can also change on a dime. Like, you know, disasters happen or life perspective changes on a dime. Like when something happens, like you can go from totally depressed to fervent and ardent love in Christ. Like you can, you know, it's like there's degrees to things. It's not just, you know, it's not like a downward spiral unless you let it, you know, like it can change. And I think that's why God is like rooting for us. I think God is at our bedside wanting us to, you know, like he wants to see us turn to him, you know, and it's like, it's because he knows all things. It's like what he knows is unlimited and amazing. And I think we get tricked by the devil and, you know, the demons that try to like oppress us and hold us in chains and in darkness of mind. Like, but God knows that God is always an infinite and unapproachable light. Like, and so it can change anytime he wants it to, or he causes it to because of something.
Yeah, I'd say God is in. God fights for your zeal. That's you want to know God's will. It's for you to be zealous for Him. I think we're all zealous, naturally, meaning that we're all our hearts do this. They just find something to love, find something to be obsessed about, find something to be addicted, find something to fulfill. And when it's not God, there's problems, right? But when it is, that's alignment, right? Now I'm in order, right?
And the other thing too is like the question I ask myself, even as I say it, like it's like, well, who stole my zeal? Like what is occupying my mind that stole my zeal for something else? What idol has stolen my zeal? You know, and that's why it says that God is a jealous God, and it says that and that's why it says that he's an all-consuming fire, because he's going to burn all the idols and burn everything that's not eternal.
Yeah. Remember when God
So it just
when God burns your idols, He's fighting for your heart. Okay, He's fighting for your own liberty. He's fighting for your honor too, or your dignity in that sense, right? Remember, there's a I always want to go back to that sense of orderness. This whole process. Okay, because remember, you can destroy an idol, but I always say there's an objective idol, but there's an external idol, but there's an internal idol. The internal idols will always carry it with us, right? And those are the things that need to die. Once that's dead, everything else just fades away. Yeah. Verse 12. Verse 12 says, "Rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation, be constant in prayer." Okay, rejoice in hope, be patient in tribulation. So here we're essentially he uses three interconnected virtues: rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, and be consistency or perseverance in prayer. This is where it says, where he says to rejoice in hope. I think, and then he talks about suffering after. Remember, this is something he talked about. Paul talked about the very beginning of Romans 5, verse 3 and 4, talking about hope, suffering producing hope, essentially. You know, Paul goes down a list of things of what suffering does to a person, but it refines your hope at the end of the day. Remember, the hope that we should be rejoicing in are the promises that God has given us in Scripture, the clear ones. Okay, God's will, God's desire is for you to be in heaven. God's desire is for you to be whole today. God's desire is for you to be holy today. God's etc. And these are things within this life, and there's a hope that these things happen in our life. Okay, and they have, and the reason why I want to stress that out is because I think, and when you hear the word hope, it's always over spiritualized. It's always, remember, hope is future tense. You ever want to know why? Remember in 1 Corinthians 13, where Paul at the very end, the very last verse of chapter 13, where he says, "Faith, hope, and love abide in these things." But what's the greatest out of them all?
Love.
Right? So, hey, do you have an issue with faith and hope, Paul? What's wrong with faith and hope? Well, the whole point of it is in the afterlife, you're not going to need faith and hope because you don't. It's logically impossible. Paul's being very logical here. Okay, love is consistent even in the afterlife, but faith and hope, there's no need for it. Now there is, but in the afterlife there won't be, because again, what do you have faith in? What are you hoping in for the future? Everything's attained. It's right before you, right? So here is we're always in pursuit. We're always looking for the future hope, but it's always in the process of sanctification, or it's eternal life. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of times our hope, very man-made, right? Man-made, our own desires, and we always put them in God. We put them in we put them in the mouth of God, and we expect Him to answer these prayers, right? So Proverbs 13:12, hope deferred what? It makes the heart sick. An expectation unfulfilled makes a person very sad. I thought this was going to happen, right? But where did that expectation happen? It came from a heart. I'm pumping things out, okay? So essentially, build your hope upon the promises of God, and one of the hopes that we know for sure is sanctification. Sanctification. This is why in chapter 5, it's almost like he's like, yeah, suffering's a good thing. Whereas in James 1, verse 2 to 4, right? Count it all joy. And the whole point of it is one of the things in this life that will refine your soul, if used, is that of suffering. It truly refines the soul. Okay? So a hope that we could have is sanctification. Okay? Verse 13, he says, contribute to the needs of the saints and seek to honor, and seek to show what? Hospitality. Okay? So remember, this is still in the context of love towards what? The family of God. Okay? Still, love towards the family of God. Hospitality fulfills the needs of people that do not belong. Okay? So remember, we're talking about hospitality. There is a need in all of us to belong somewhere, to have sense of a home. Okay? And when we don't have that, you wander, you look, You know, you ever see a wolf looking for meat, just hunting? Your soul does that when you don't belong. One of the beautiful things about hospitality, whatever context that in a church or in a home, is that it fulfills that desire. The person wants to be there. Okay, you feel at home. You ever hear the distinction of a house versus a home? Right, a house is just a building, but a home is what? It's an experience. It's an experience. If all of us were to go to the house that we all grew up in, say we're 8 years old, 7 years old, I already know no one's living there, or the people that you grew up there is not living there, so it'd feel very empty inside. You just have a lot of past tense moments and think, oh wow, when I was here I did this, I did that. But remember, it'd feel impersonal because it's just a house, right? But a home, it's experiential. There's the need of belonging is there. Okay, so Christian hospitality is a very interesting study as far as hospitality goes. The first was Saint Basil of Caesarea that started a Byzantine church, or sorry, a hospital. Sorry, a Byzantine hospital in the 4th century. Same thing with Saint Samson. Okay, starting churches in the 4th century. The Hotel Buet of Leon is one of the first hotels in the world, and it's still, I think it's a hotel now, but it was a hospital essentially. In French, it's the hospital of God. Okay, so the Christians were one of the first people to ever establish actual hospitals. Okay, now what the problem was that when it came to Saint Basil and when it came to creating hospitals or making hospitals, was that the church became so reliant on hospitals that they forgot hospitality themselves, because they said, if you want hospitality, go over there, right? Remember, hospitality is a 24-hour experience as far as belonging goes. Okay, so again, there's some very powerful examples that we have of Christianity and hospitality towards fellow brothers and sisters in Christ. Okay, did someone have a question? Kevin?
Well, it's just funny that it says contribute to the needs of the saints, and then he attaches to the same sentence, seek to show hospitality, because he knew that a lot of the need was probably, someone sleeping over at your house.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if there was like homelessness back then.
Yeah, there was homelessness back then. Yeah, it's in the Bible, right? The lepers, Acts 3, right? No, there was definitely homelessness, and Jesus says, "The poor you'll always have with you." Right?
Oh yeah.
Well, I was listening to like Jeremiah as I fell asleep, and it says something about how God's Spirit will be awakened if you bring the beggar into your home. It almost like woke me up out of my own sleep as I was listening to it.
Yeah.
And I do kind of wonder if this lack of zeal, this deadness that we feel, is because we're not willing to completely just unzip our, just really just let it go, and let the Spirit,
Yeah.
and extreme generosity go,
Yeah.
I mean, I think if you were if he was leading you toward that, I think that would be wise to, follow that prompting, But I think just doing it is another thing. But I think if you, through a series of events, met someone that it's God is pointing the specific person out, and it's him doing it, it's I think it would be amazing. It would be an amazing journey, but I think a lot of times, people try to do stuff for God, and I keep on hearing in different sermons that it's that's not what he wants. He was saying that we're called human beings, not human doings. And it just kind of stood out to me. I was like, can we just like be in, you know, in our relationship with the living God, and like, can we just be and exist and see what happens? I don't know.
Well, the thing with 21st century homelessness versus first century is I think Serena put the drugs. I don't think that was an issue back then, as far as the type of drugs that they have now in comparison, or they have now in comparison. Yeah, I think it's such an interesting conversation as far as how Christians can treat the poor in the 21st century. And I say that because this is something that was very public, was very at the heart of a lot of churches, in my opinion, a lot of preachers. Just when I hear them talking about the poor, and but recently it's become a conversation of there's almost no conversation, and I think a lot of people are turned off by the homelessness in America, in the sense of it's not really homeless. Like before, like you had guys like Shane Claiborne, Francis Chan, on and on, like guys like 15 years ago, who are just like it was almost like the leading conversation was like homelessness and poverty, but then I think the whole drugs, what it did was that it made a lot of Christians, and what I see, very very dismissive. And I get it. It's just sometimes it's like, are you really homeless, or are you're an addict? And you're saying you're homeless. Well, you're homeless because you're an addict, right? And there's a frustration that I see with a lot of people. And I think there was an emphasis, to go to foreign nations and send some missionary trip to Africa. And, a lot of that. Now, you don't hear, I'm just saying, you don't hear a lot of it in comparison to before. And I think that's because of what we've seen in our streets. And that is homelessness. That is, forget going to some foreign land. You have foreign land coming here, right? And I think there's a different attitude you see. But again, like I think there is some sense of purity that we're supposed to fight for, as far as someone that's really going through it. Someone that's homeless, but they're really homeless, not addicted to whatever drug that is out there. So like I say that because I want to preserve that passage that you quoted, Peter. The many passages in the Bible that talk about those who are poor, those who are homeless. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, like you said, I think as soon as we institutionalize it or we offload the act of hospitality, generosity, we depersonalize it.
Yeah.
And, it's a diffusing of what I think is intended by that. And it depersonalizes it. So it doesn't mean that I'm saying hospitals are bad. I'm just really saying that we should definitely, like, I'm learning that myself too. Be sensitive to that if the Spirit's moving you to do something. Very sensitive. Act. Have a default to act. That's my thought.
Yeah.
This is my thought. But you're right. Like, I think that our culture that our homeless situation is the nexus of drugs and mental health. It's a massive problem.
Yeah. And it's at this point,
it can be throwing good money after bad.
Well, at this point, it's like, the church is always called to help out, but like, how far does the church go when it comes to your city? And the government has to take responsibility.
Yeah, my friend was an elder at Presbyterian Church, a little Presbyterian church we were part of in Atlanta, and they got a new pastor come in, and he was big about that. I mean, he was big about, like, no matter what, and he sort of exhausted the deacons and elders with the homeless situation inside the church, as being a viaduct for hospitality, where he wasn't really listening to the elders, trying to kind of shepherd him, the new pastor, into like a more, like you said, a more head smart zealousness, that put it in its proper role inside the church. But really, I think it means more when it's a personal thing. It means a lot more instead of just being diffused into a local body church. I think it's easy for some people to hide, sort of cowardly, hide the act of hospitality behind the church itself. Like, oh, I got potlucks, or oh, we got that, instead of really making an effort to reach out as an individual to show courageously, to show hospitality to someone that, hey, this person may not smell so great, or how do we show the love of Christ to these people? And I think, but do it smartly. I mean, you want to invite an insane person into your living room. I mean, like literally, that exists out there.
Right.
I don't know. I think it's case by case, and it's not meant to be.
It's like
within wisdom, and I don't mean to sound serious about it. I'm just saying that it's something that I'm challenged by personally. Like if I see a situation where I'm not intimidated by the individual, and I can do something for them, what can I do?
Well,
Can I make a suggestion?
I think with
yeah, Serena.
Go ahead.
Sorry. My thought, I really like what you said about building a relationship with said person, whoever that is. And I think, usually homeless people hang out in the same general area. And so if you have, a little picnic basket or whatever, some food items, and you make this, it can be short at first, but your interaction can be short, but the more you see them, little by little, you can formulate more of a relationship and kind of invite them in that way,
Absolutely. Yeah. I have tried that. I mean, I guess I'm trying to go a little layer deeper than that. And this individual I was reaching out to, Michael, who lives under a bridge, literally. I think he has some serious schizophrenia or something. He just seemed like a normal kid, but he had bouts of extreme mental duress. Again, I think he's younger than me, so it's not like it's not a situation where I'm intimidated. It's literally something that, what can I do? I don't even know. But yeah, you're right. Just little gifts and little acts of kindness. Absolutely.
Kevin?
I think those are important gestures. Those are important gestures of humanity. Like Ruben and I, we talk about this. Like, how have we lost our language of humanity?
Oh yeah.
Behind Reformed Christianity or behind all these different things that can be really just castles of cowardice. And again, I'm talking about myself, but yeah, no, I had one counselor talk about he takes McDonald's gift cards and he writes verses on the back and gives those out. That way they're not buying booze, or drugs or. I thought that was a genius idea. Yeah. It just gives good little ideas, But anyhow, sorry to bug up that. I need to find that verse, and I'll try to find it. It's in Jeremiah.
What was it again?
I gotta find it. It was just sometimes I just fall asleep listening to the Bible, and it was somewhere in Jeremiah. And it was sort of like how a lot of those prophetic books is sort of like a little flash of lightning in the middle of a verse, or in the middle of a.
No, but could you paraphrase?
A chapter. You're like, what was that? It's like it was basically like it awakens the Spirit of God when you bring in it basically awakens the Spirit of God. The thought in my head when I heard it was like when you bring in someone into your home, and to me that was like it really struck me that and I'm thinking more like kids who are just getting on the street, like just initially trying to capture them back into civilized society. And I'll try to find it. I'll listen to it before I go to bed.
I mean, the irony is it's a prophetic book, and then it's like you wake up to the prophecy. So it's like, you know, that that happened to you. So it's like I'm not going to say what that means, but I just think it's interesting because I think it speaks of your heart toward the least of these, and how you have been or will be used now or in the future. And it's just, I think it's beautiful. I think you just never know, like, with an open heart, you never know, like, what, the Lord will do with it.
Yeah,
Or,
I reached out to 2 homeless people, and I lost touch with both of them. Just due to whatever reasons, they just kind of drift away, or I'm not sure. I literally got to know them and call them routinely and meet with them and support them. But it is difficult. It's a difficult lifestyle. It's hard on them. It's hard on their bodies. And I think there's always addiction behind the scenes, which is terrible. But yeah, I'll try to find it just to bookmark that. It was somewhere.
So we have love. Remember, if you offer up, verse 1, chapter 12, you offer up yourself as a living sacrifice, things happen, okay? You start to love. And remember, how do you know someone's heart is for God? Their heart has been changed. Okay, I'm not talking just dead belief. I'm talking about changed. Well, you treat people differently. You treat the family of God differently. That's what we talked about. 2 more, and very quick. We'll go over his first. Or you also love towards those who are hostile towards you. Verse 14 and 16 says, "Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice. Weep those that weep. Live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Never be wise in your own sight." Okay, bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. This is very similar to what Jesus says in Matthew and also in Luke, Luke chapter 6. And then he says in verse 15 and 16, "Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep, live in harmony with one another." So Paul's solution is twofold in verse 15 and 16, and that is when I'm talking about showing hostility or love towards those hostilities is harmonize and sympathize. Okay, or sympathize and harmonize. How about that? Okay, sympathize and harmonize. Verse 15, what? Rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those who weep. Sympathy here. What is sympathy? It's entering into someone's emotional state. Typically, it's always sympathize with those who are in pain. Okay, not in success, right? But entering into someone else's emotional state. Think of Christ. Okay, rejoice with those who rejoice, weep with those that weep. Think of Christ. Rejoice with those that rejoice. John chapter 2, at the wedding, right? Rejoicing with those who are rejoicing. You know what the shortest verse in the Bible is?
Jesus wept.
Jesus wept.
John 11:35, and we're talking about rejoicing with those that are rejoicing. What? Weeping with those that weep. And you look at John 11:35. Jesus wept. Why is he weeping? He knows that Lazarus is going to die. He knows all of it. He intentionally waited some days for that, right? So it's not a knowledge issue, but again, it's Jesus knows how to enter into someone else's emotional state. He knows how to grieve with people. Okay, so uh, again, this is coming at a point to someone where you're able to weep with them, but also rejoice with them. Okay, and again, it's easier to weep with someone that's weeping, isn't it? All of us, yeah. It's easy,
Yes.
but it's harder to rejoice with those that are rejoicing. The reason why um, is something called envy. Envy that rots the bones, Proverbs says. Right? So if you're the type of person where you wanted that raise at work and you were working extra hours for that raise, and lo and behold, someone who you know, this person is not qualified, but maybe they're the cousin, second cousin of some, right? And next thing you know, they got the raise. And you're like, how did that happen? Now, they're, yes, I got the raise, right? So they're rejoicing. What do? Right? Hard to rejoice in that incident, in that situation, right? Typically, you don't want that to happen, right? Envy rots the bones. But again, getting to that point of rejoicing with those that rejoice and weeping with those that weep. Okay, so what he's saying is sympathy and harmony. Okay, as far as verse 16, verse 16, live in harmony with one another. Do not be haughty, but associate with the lowly. Um, and never be wise in your own sight. Okay, so this is love towards those who are hostile towards you, and last, love towards those that are your enemies. Okay, so we have love towards your family, people that love you, love towards those who are hostile towards you. You might not like them, but they don't like you. Now, love towards your what? Enemies. They don't like you, but you also don't like them now. Okay, can someone read 17 to 21? We'll finish here. 17 to 21.
Repay no one evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. If possible, so far as it depends on you, live peaceably with all. Beloved, never avenge yourselves, but leave it to the wrath of God, for it is written, vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. To the contrary, if your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good.
Vengeance is mine, I will repay, says the Lord. This is God's rightful place to do that, giving someone vengeance when you've been wronged. I think the natural instinct that we have is if you get slapped, what do? You slap the other person, right? When there's a retaliation, there's a vengeance. You did this to me, I do this to you. One of the again, that's natural. One of the again, let's just talk about the heart, the condition of the heart. Okay, when someone is at a point of they've been offended, they've been hurt, and I want to respond to them accordingly as far as the way they treated me. There's something beautiful where a person is able to let go. A person is able to acknowledge the pain that person has caused them, but have it within them to say, I'm not going to repay, right? And they truly have given the situation to God. I think of Joseph in this situation when it comes to vengeance is mine, as he was mistreated multiple times, but primarily from his brothers, right? His brothers that trafficked him essentially. Fast forward, Joseph is the second most powerful man in all of Egypt, and Egypt was the superpower of the world around this time. So the mindset of the brothers was, when dad dies, we're dead. Joseph's going to kill us. But in reality, that wasn't the case. The brothers are standing before Joseph in Genesis chapter 50. And they're like, oh no, is he going He's going to kill us. And Joseph says, no, stop thinking like this. Stop thinking like this. And we all know Genesis 50, verse 20, that says, you had it for evil, but what? God for good, right? There's that, but then there's the verse before it that we don't really quote. We don't really say. So verse 20 says, you meant it for evil, but God meant it for good. Verse 19 says, am I in the place of God? Joseph says, am I in the place of God? Do not fear, for am I in the place of God, he says. Essentially, the context is they think that he's going to retaliate. Vengeance. And Joseph knows, he says, that's not my duty. I'm not there. That's not my position. That's not my position to be it. I could if I wanted to, right? But I'm not going to, because that's not mine. That's God's. It's a power issue. When we want to take vengeance, it's a control issues that we have. We see a violation. We want something to be done. Don't get me wrong. I'm all for justice. But when all of a sudden our heart takes the wheel of God, right? There's an alignment there. Okay? But again, vengeance is mine. Letting go of vengeance is us acknowledging our own humanity, essentially. When I say our own humanity, we're saying we're not God. There's things that we pursue that are by nature God. God does it. God is in control. I'm not in control, but I want control. See, I'm fighting to be God. When I die to my control, I'm being human now. Back to what Paul says in verse 3, right? A sober judgment of who? Of me. Okay, so when Joseph can say these to his own brother, God was doing the work in his heart in order for that to happen. The natural instinct is to kill them all. Right? It's to kill them. What does he say? Vengeance is mine. To the contrary, and he quotes Proverbs 25, verse 21 to 22. If your enemy is hungry, feed him. If he is thirsty, give him something to drink. For by doing so, you will heap burning coals on his head. Okay, and this is where someone intends something very bad, but then you are shown the sense of kindness, compassion, and all of a sudden in you, there's what? Burning coals on your head. I don't know if this has ever happened to you. I use this story all the time, and you've probably heard it, but I'm gonna say it again. But M Street Coffee, Studio City, it's on Moore Park. I was waiting for a friend of mine, and it was raining that day, and there was this. I wanted to buy a cup of coffee and a bagel, and I'm waiting for a friend. He's not there, and I pay, and it says, "Oh, your card's not working." I'm like, "What? It's not working. I just used it. How it's not working." Okay, so now a girl, and no one's there. No one's behind me. This girl comes, and she's standing right behind me, and now I'm like, you feel pressured. Right, I felt pressured, so I start, saying stuff in my head about her. I'm like, oh, why does she have to be here? Negativity, right? And I look at my wallet. And I say, I got $2 cash. I could just buy a cup of coffee and that's it. Forget the bagel. And I tell her, go ahead. So she orders, right, and she leaves, and then I make my purchase. I say, could I just get the cup of coffee? I have $2 cash. So I give her $2 cash, and the cash register says, "Oh, don't worry, she paid for you." Right? And then in me, before I had a heart of, I was making fun of her in my heart. I didn't like the fact that she was standing there. Even to me, it was a threat, right? And we do that. And all of a sudden, she paid for me without even nothing. And in me, there was hot burning coals on my head, meaning like, oh my, why did I do that? Oh, thank you. Oh, right? I'm a fool and you're not. I'm a fool and you're not. Kind of mentality. It stung, that experience. It stung, right? And that's what happens when someone shows you kindness, right? When there is essentially evil in your heart. right? There will be hot burning coals on their head, right? When someone shows you kindness in the midst of evil that's happening, okay? So, loving enemies is perhaps one of the most countercultural things, aspects of the Christian life and in our society. Okay, loving your enemies. It's very difficult to love our enemies, and the reason why. Look at just the American context, the political climate right now. Everyone's an enemy and everyone's a good guy, right? If you're a Democrat, then what? The enemy is the Republicans. If you're a Republican, who's the enemy? The Democrats. There's always an enemy, right? But the best thing is when you love your enemies. Love your enemies, right? There was a podcast that happened a couple weeks ago with the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and there was a conservative podcaster by the name of Charlie Kirk. I don't know if you've seen it, but I saw the whole thing, and the comments were nasty in regards to Gavin Newsom. And I was like, how could you? Why are you allowed? Why are you talking to all that? And I'm saying it's countercultural. We can't even have a conversation with someone we disagree with nowadays, right? So essentially, I'm closing it here, guys. Do not be overcome with evil, but overcome evil with good. Okay? And how he concludes. And again, so essentially what Paul is saying, how does someone, how do you see someone's heart when it comes to God? How do you see someone's heart? Well, it's how they treat people. It's how they treat people. It's how you treat your loved ones, your church family. It's how you treat those who are hostile towards you, as far as them not liking you, them wanting to persecute you. And last, it's how you treat your enemies. It's one of the signs as you can see what is truly inside someone. How they treat their enemies. And we know how Christ treated his loved ones. We know how Christ treated those who were hostile to him. And those we also know how Christ treated what? His enemies. And he prayed, Father, what? Forgive them. And that's a reflection of what is inside of his heart in reference to the Father. No different from ours too. Okay? How do you know someone's heart before God? Well, just look at how they treat people. Okay? Any questions, guys?
I mean, when you actually go over all the things he did, or the major things, you really realize your prognosis is worse than you think it is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, but I was just thinking about the Jesus wept thing. Weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. Was at the wedding and he gave a wedding gift. So it's like he was rejoicing and he wept. So it's just the standard is too high. I cannot attain it.